All right, there you go. What's going on, Michael? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Lee? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good, man. I appreciate you giving me a couple more minutes. I had to take my daughter to work, and it was right at the time of the interview. So,
No, I appreciate you. That gave me time to eat. I was running back and forth. I was like, you know what? The universe is undefeated.
oh, in it. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was looking at your webpage, and I started thinking about how the universe is undefeated and things that are happening at work, meaning a lot of conversations about mindset.
Mm.
A lot of conversations have just been coming from different places, right?
That's what I do, man. I take entrepreneurs from where they are to a
Yeah.
million based on some of the principles that I'm going to teach you with regards to mindset. So I think you'll be pretty interested in it.
Are you in LA?
I'm not. I'm actually in Mexico City.
Do you live in Mexico City?
Yeah, we've been living in Mexico City for the past
Oh,
4 or 5 years. So yeah, we've
okay.
been.
That's dope.
But we're moving back to LA in February.
Okay. I'm in California. That's why I asked.
Oh, which
So
part?
it's about 60 miles from San Diego.
Oh, okay. No, I've never been over there.
Yeah, but it's east a little bit, so it's more the desert instead of in the by the water. So,
Okay.
but I love it.
Okay.
Maybe in 2025 we can find an opportunity to meet up somewhere.
Yeah,
so
man. I'll be in
that's
LA.
bottom line where I'm getting at.
Put it out there. Put the intention. Let's do it.
Exactly. Say hi real quick. Say hello. All right.
Hey,
He wants
buddy. I
He wants to.
would have my cats say hi to you, but they're still asleep. So.
When you look back in hindsight, everything is 2020. In hindsight, we make mistakes, we're learning from it. In hindsight, yesterday and your tomorrow. In hindsight, is so much clearer now.
Imagine living in the shadow of your potential, feeling stuck and unsure how to break free. What if you could reprogram your mindset to embody the most successful version of yourself right now? Today's guest, Michael Blunt, is an executive mindset coach. And give me the actual title, Michael.
It's a wealth mindset coach, but you're not wrong. I work with a lot of executives or people with an executive mindset. So we're almost there.
There it is. So, wealth mindset coach.
Yeah.
who specializes in helping entrepreneurs and business leaders overcome limiting beliefs to build thriving companies and fulfilling lives. With years of experience transforming ambition into achievement, Michael is here to show us how shifting our mindset can unlock exponential growth and success. Welcome to Hindsight. I'm Lee Jones, your host. Michael, how are you doing today, sir?
Thank you for having me, Lee Jones. I am blessed, man, and ready to provide value and share with your community. Hi, community. Hi. I hope everything is well. And I'm just so happy to be here on a Lee Jones podcast.
I love it. We're just going to jump right into it. And Michael, before we get into learning the wealth mindset just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about who you are and how you got to be where you are today?
Absolutely. So my name is Michael A. Blunt. I am a wealth mindset coach. And I got to where I am today from depression and thoughts of suicide. And I know it sounds pretty dramatic, but there was, it was a contrasting experience for me where I worked in corporate America for a number of years. I got my MBA and I thought corporate America was the pinnacle. I want to move up the ladder. This is where I need to be. And come to find out, that's not where I needed to be. So I kept trying to push an agenda that just wasn't working for me. I would start off in one job. I would work there for a couple of years. I would either get fired or I would leave. And I was like, why isn't this working out for me? And, I started going through bouts of depression, anxiety, overwork, overwhelm, all the overs and unders that you can think of, until eventually it landed me in the hospital, Lee. And once I landed in the hospital, I really had to change some things because, it was a life or death situation with my mental health. And, I asked the doctor, what's wrong with me? And he said, actually nothing, but there is something that's wrong with you mentally. and that your mental health has completely deteriorated, and now you're feeling the physical manifestations of that. And Lee, this is going to sound funny now because, there's a lot of work that people have done to provide awareness on this. But back then in 2015, I had no clue there was a correlation between what you were feeling mentally and what would physically show up in your body. I didn't know that I could get TMJ. I didn't know I could get stress hives. I didn't know that all these things could show up in your body. So that's what happened, man. And from there, the sky's been the limit.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you what, if I were guessing, because I don't know, so I need to be careful of the words that I choose to use, but I'm sure there are a lot of individuals who are out there right now suffering from the same afflictions that you were dealing with in 2015, right?
Absolutely.
Just having connected the dots. So, wow. We're going to talk about mindset mastery for a little bit, because I think that's kind of the core of what you're going to help me and what you're going to help the other listeners, with today. So what would be your definition of mindset mastery, and why is it crucial for success?
Well, let's first go back to the concept around wealth. I'm a wealth mindset coach.
Okay, and I got to add that in. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we think about, before we even get to mindset, we need to start percolating around the word wealth. When I'm talking about wealth, overall, the concept of wealth is, how do you align your success with fulfillment? So as you see before, I might have been successful in corporate America. I was making a 6-figure paycheck. And that for me was success. I'd never had that before, but the fulfillment part wasn't there. So I started having this type of contrasting experience where my health started to deteriorate, and I was filled with fear. Because I didn't know that I could just leave and start my own business. I thought that's the only thing that I could do. So I was so fearful that actually started to eat up in my body, and I started to develop all these physical ailments. So what I really wanted to focus on when I switched from corporate, I was forced out of corporate by the universe. It felt like in my body, but I left corporate and then I started my own business. How can I provide wealth to humanity? How can I teach humanity to achieve more wealth in their life? And wealth could be community. Wealth is your mental state. Wealth is physical. Wealth is love. Wealth is financial. Wealth is time. That's a huge thing. Wealth is all of these different components. So how do you have, basically, Lee, how do you have it all? How do you have it all on your own terms throughout your lifetime? And that's what I teach when it comes to wealth. And then when it comes to mindset, that's a whole different thing. It builds off of one another. So now I understand, wealth is all these different components. But when you get to mindset, you have to think of it, the way that I like to think of it is, how can I put myself in a position to become the person that wants to actually receive what I'm looking for? So let me give you an example of mindset. There's two different people. One person with one mindset says, I want to make $1 million. Another person with a different mindset says, I want to become a millionaire. The one who's becoming a millionaire is going to be immensely successful. The one who wants to make $1 million hasn't gone through the mental fortitude in order to really receive that and to keep it and to sustain it. So they might make $1 million, but over time, that's going to completely wear away, where the other person is going to be that. They can lose it. They can get it back. They're already a millionaire. They're thinking in millionaire ways. That's the power of your mindset.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, so you mentioned earlier that I didn't know that I could leave and start a new business on my own. So how does someone, and that was just an example that I picked up, but how does someone identify limiting beliefs that may be holding them back?
There's a lot of different ways, but the first thing that I teach is contrasting experiences.
Okay.
So here's what happens. You go through life and you experience something. You experience a layoff, or you experience, a really good guest that you had on your podcast. You might have gotten a bonus of $10,000 or $20,000. You might have found out that your wife or your daughter is sick. These are all different experiences. The experience doesn't change. The contrasting experience happens when you have something that happens in your life and you're like, I don't like that experience. I don't want that experience. I don't really want to continue having this experience in my life. So automatically that's going to spark a desire. That's going to spark, this is what I actually want. Now, if you keep having that experience, that's your limiting belief. Your limiting belief is when you look at something and you're like, hey, I don't like how this is planning out in my life. Rather, if it's, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough love, I don't have enough relationships, you can automatically identify there's some limitation that's happening within my reality that continues to create this contrasting experience.
Sure.
So Lee, even you could look at your life right now and you could say, man, I just dropped my daughter off at work and she's wonderful and beautiful and she's healthy. I got my beautiful dog. I got my podcast. This is all going well. But there are some places in your life where you're like, I wish it was a little different.
Yeah.
I wish I was at a different level. I wish I was in a different position. I wish these things didn't happen. And those are the areas where you can identify and say, there's a limiting belief. And if I get more clarity on that limiting belief, then I can have a positive experience rather than a contrasting experience.
Contrasting experience. I'm writing all this down. I told you this at the beginning, Michael. It won't be on the episode. So I want to say this out loud. When I first talked to Michael, I expressed, he said something about the universe, right? Working in both of our favors. And then I specifically said, hey, it worked in my favor because he is absolutely the person that I wanted to speak to on mindset, which was a limiting or contrasting experience. No, but it's actually wealth mindset, right?
Yeah. Wealth mindset, coach.
Right. So and I'm just super excited, and that's why you're going to see me stopping and writing things down because I'm excited to learn from your experience. So we got limiting, we got contrasting experiences. So once someone figures out, okay, this is something that I don't want to happen, it's continuing to happen. I'm in this space. I don't like being in this space. What is the next step in that process of wealth mindset?
Beautiful.
How did it get from it? Yeah.
Beautiful question. So this is where it comes in if, a person who's going to be successful or a person who's going to be unsuccessful.
Mm-hmm.
So you remember when I told you about that experience?
Yeah.
Give me an experience in your life, Lee, that you're like, I wish it could change. I don't, it's a contrasting experience.
Wow. You mean any part of my life? Because I got a few of them.
Any part of your life, we could do a session right now. How about that for your viewers? Like,
I don't want to. I like for my guests to be vulnerable, so I guess I'll be slightly vulnerable as well. One of the things, and it's nothing that can be changed right now, except for I learned from that experience and I took things, I made different decisions going forward. But in high school, and I'm 50 plus. So in high school, it still bothers me. I didn't apply myself in school and I didn't get to walk across the stage. What bothers me about that was that I didn't give my family, my mom, the opportunity to celebrate my success. And that really bothers me to this day because I was really good at the classes that I was focused on.
Yeah.
But the classes that I didn't see any future value because I'm young and you think you know everything. So I didn't give a lot of time to those classes and I wasn't successful and I wasn't able to walk across the stage. So that's an experience from my past.
Okay.
Is that good enough?
That's excellent. Thank you, Lee, for sharing that and being so vulnerable. And I just have to say to you and to the community, you have us all food because you're so, you just seem so successful. So I'm like, who cares if you got to graduate, if you graduated and walked across the stage, like you have us all food with your own thing. But anyway, so let's talk about the graduation. The graduation is your experience. That's
Yeah.
not going to change.
Right.
Now, the issue is how we interact with that experience. We have a choice. When we think about that experience, we could either have a negative reaction or we can have a positive reaction. So I'm going to give you a framework, BTFA. B as in boy, TFA. So from that experience, you could either have the belief that I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, or you can have the belief that this has given me the motivation that I needed to be the most successful MF in the world.
Yeah.
I am more powerful than anything. I didn't need that graduation. I'm going to show the world what I'm really made of, and I'm going to graduate every day for the rest of my life. Two different belief systems, right?
Yeah.
Same experience. Experience didn't change.
Right.
Now, guess what's going to happen? Let's go down path number one. The belief that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy enough, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed. That's going to create a thought. That thought is going to be all those things that I said, okay? My belief is I'm not worthy. The thought is going to be, what am I going to do? I'm so, I can't be in front of my family. I don't want to, put this on my resume, all this other stuff. Those are the thoughts that are my, so what feelings do you think that you're going to have? Well, shame,
self-doubt,
self-doubt, all different things. How do you think that you're going to react? Your actions are going to be based on that feeling.
Probably you're going to act in a safe way, safe to further protect, the lies that you're telling yourself.
Exactly. So and then that is going to create a result. That result is then going to reinforce the original belief that I'm not worthy.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
That's path number one. We know that you didn't take that path because you're on a successful podcast and you got all this other stuff. So path number two, I don't care. I know that I'm powerful. I know that I'm smart. That was just a moment in my life. I'm going to graduate every day of my life. That's my belief. It doesn't matter. That doesn't define me. So what are the thoughts that you're going to have as a result of that? Well, that doesn't define me. Let me go and kick ass. Let me think of all these other ways that, I can be successful and show my family, show the world. I'm going to prove it because I know that I am enough. I know that I am worthy. How are you going to feel? You're going to feel powerful. You're going to feel confident. You're going to feel all these things. What's that going to motivate you? What action is that going to motivate you to do? Not to say,
put me in, coach. Put me in, coach.
Put me in. Let's go. I got, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. And then that's going to create a different result in your life. Then that result is going to reinforce your belief that I am more powerful than that graduation.
Right.
Same experience didn't change, but how you interacted with the experience, the meaning that you gave to that experience is going to give you two different results in a completely different reality. That's the power of mindset.
I love it. All right. So look, you gave us two contrasting ways to view an event. So we got that. But what are some practical strategies that listeners can use to reprogram their minds if they're looking on the wrong side or if they're looking negatively at these events? How can they reprogram their mindset as their most, and here's the thing I like to think about. This is why I said we're on the collision course right here, to help them to become the most successful future self.
Here's a way that you could think about it. Because let me repeat the question back to you. You're asking, what is a more granular way that we can reprogram and we can identify some of these things, knowing that that's the journey, but that we can identify some of these things to make immediate change? Is that your question?
That's it. That's it.
Okay. All right. So now that I have your question, now I know how to process it. So let me provide you with a little story, and then I'll get into the answer.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a story of this guy named Nicholas Copernicus, and he was the inventor of polymath. And Nicholas Copernicus was this amazing, brilliant scientist. I think he created polymath, and he was an astrologer, he was a scientist, he was all these different things. And in 1543, or before 1543, the world believed, and all the scientists and all the mathematicians believed, that the world, or I should say the sun, was the center of the universe. They believed that all the planets and everything orbited around the sun. Well, that turned out to be bad math. And that turned out to be a bad formula, because when Nicholas Copernicus came along in, I think it was 1543. In 1543, Nicholas Copernicus came along and he said, actually, everything revolves around the world. Everything revolves around the earth. And so if you redo some of the formulas and you redo some of these equations, you'll see that it fits perfectly with what I'm talking about. So they went back to the drawing board and they were like, oh, yeah, okay, if I do this and X carry at the 1, oh, man, Nicholas, you're right. It fits perfectly. It's perfectly balanced. They shifted everything. And now that's what we study until someone else comes and proves something different.
Okay.
So that was bad math before. Then we learned good math, the right formula.
Okay.
Here's my point. We've all been learning bad math before this podcast. The bad math that we've been learning is desire plus hard work plus the right education plus knowing the right people equals your desired outcome. Desire plus going to the right school. Desire plus working 24 hours in a day and working twice as hard as the next person and doing all these things equals your desired result. Here's why that's the bad math.
It's bad math, yeah.
If that was good math, then everybody that did that would be successful. Not just a few people. So that equation only works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
And those some people are the loudest minorities in the room who are saying, hey, it worked for me, this can work for you. And then other people are like, well, why doesn't it work for me? And when I say other people, I mean 9 out of 10 people.
Yeah.
And so you have to ask the question, why? So then we have another Nicholas Copernicus comes who's like, hey, listen, I'm going to teach you good math, a different equation. And that good equation is this: desire plus non-resistance equals desired result.
Okay.
So instead of thinking of the middle part as, I got to work harder, I got to do this, I got to move here, I got to, all these different things that are so many different variables of an equation, that's going to make me more successful. Instead of thinking that way, all you need to do is move the resistance that is keeping you from your desire to your desired result.
Okay.
So we're really good at the first part. We're really good at knowing what our desire is. Okay, I want to raise. Okay, I want the love of my life to come. I want my business to scale. Well, you've got 50% of the equation already figured out. It's the other 50%, the resistance, that is keeping you from where you want to be. So to answer your question, the quickest way, the easiest way, the best way to really just identify something, dig in and get the results that you're looking for, know what you desire, but identify what your resistance is to your desired outcome. Once you remove that resistance, there's nothing keeping your desire from your desired result from coming together.
Sound like some pretty sound math.
It's the simplest way it's the simplest. You asked me, what is it? It was the simplest way we can do this. That's simple math for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you what, Michael, a lot of times, and I always, this is something I work on. I don't want to speak for everybody else, right? So I like to speak for me. And I like that math. And I believe that I, at times, can complicate things. Now, just because that equation seems simple, it's not simple, but it is conceptually simple. To actually achieve it takes a little bit of work, but in doing that, I believe that I can complicate things in trying to, what are my obstacles? How do I eliminate it? Is that, does this obstacle mean this? Do I need to eliminate, all of these different things, you start going crazy with it, right? And maybe, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but what I'm saying is that is a very sound equation. And for anyone who listened to me just now and try to explain my mental, don't freaking complicate it. All right. Just know what your desires are and then figure out what those obstacles are. And then you make it work and you get there.
And I did want to mention something. I made a mistake. I I meant to say the sun is the center of the universe, not the earth.
I got it.
Yeah. But my apologies. I got excited. I mixed it around. So the sun is, that's what Nicholas Copernicus said, the sun.
I got you. I'm glad you said it. I didn't want to say it, but I think most people would have understood the meaning.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm not going to talk about another guest I had, but anyway, you.
Let's talk about it.
No, I mean it kind of dealt with beliefs, and he had a very compelling argument, but it was, to me, it was like the person who yelled the loudest. I just don't believe that it's true.
Okay,
right? So let me preface it with that. He's a flat Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
We got it.
Don't laugh. No.
I laugh because it's just, to me, it's just such a like, why are we talking about this?
I know. I know, and I tell you what, he had a compelling argument because our conversation was really not about the Earth being flat. And I asked him straight up, hey, do you use such a, and I don't mean to talk about him on this one, but do you use that as like an icebreaker to get to a deeper message? You use that to gather attention and get people engaged, and then you're like, all right, boom, you've been told lies about things, right? So anyway, don't laugh. He had a compelling argument.
I completely understand. I can also see how that could be a very polarizing way to start a conversation, and unless you have won the trust of your audience, where then you could start. And actually, this comes back to exactly the formula I was talking about. Removing the resistance. So when he comes and he says that, there's already resistance to even listen to what he's saying because he hasn't built the trust yet. Right. So what is the resistance? The trust. Yeah. Now, here, my theory on it is probably more in line with yours, but we don't need to go into the details of it. But here's the thing: you can learn the most disdainful things. You can learn the most amazing things from the most disdainful people if you remove the resistance from who they are to what the information is that you're extracting. So you made a really good point there. If you didn't have that resistance, you might have been more open to actually hearing more of what he had to say, which could have been something where you're like, hey, you know what? This is actually something that I think that we can run with. I might not fully believe it, but I'm more receptive to it now.
Yeah.
And that's not to say anything about you or me. That's just an example that I want to give of when you remove the resistance, you're available to the information that's in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose of that formula for mindset.
Got it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for entertaining me with that one. But let's move along. Hey, so you talk about, and I'm saying you talk about it, so hopefully I'm saying truths here. Achieving 10-year goals in 1 year. How do you do that? Like, what wealth mindset mastery techniques play a role in making that possible?
Well, let's understand.
Yeah, talk about it a little bit.
Let's understand how this works at first.
My bad.
I'm 6 years old, and I say, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to drive a car." And you say, "No." And I'm adamant that I want to drive the car, that I'm ready, that I really want to drive it, and I can do a fabulous job in my 5-year-old brain. And I get behind the car. Somehow, in my 5 or 6-year-old self, I find the keys on the table, and I go in there. I start pressing buttons, and then I try to turn on the car, and then I run into the garage door, and I'm like, oh, man, I thought that I could do it, but maybe I can't. So that's one scenario. Now, let's say 10 years later, the 16-year-old says, "Mommy, Daddy, I want to drive the car." And you say, "Hey, I think you're ready. I remember when you were 6 and you asked me the same thing, but I think that you're ready for this. You have developed a new mindset that is going to allow you to do the things, that is going to allow you to be more prepared. It's going to allow you to take more precaution. in order to really drive safely on these roads. Let me sit in the car with you and let me show you how to turn right. Let me show you how to turn left. And next thing you know, you're driving by yourself. You couldn't have done that as a 5-year-old. You couldn't have done that with a 5-year-old mindset. So my proposition to you and to all your viewers is, if you have a certain mindset right now, and if I tell you that I could fast forward your mindset 10 years from now, what do you think the possibilities of that would be today?
Wow. Enormous possibilities, endless, almost.
Endless.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward that 20 years. And so if we can keep repeating that same formula, the same framework that I have to accelerate and expand your mindset 10 years from now, then you will be able to produce 10 years worth of work. That's how you condense the gap. And that's how you timeline jump to the next timeline. Hey, excuse me.
Yeah.
But that's how it works.
Yeah. Okay. I got a similar, I know when I was in the military, we used to, and this has nothing to do with 10 and 20 years, but it was a mindset in the future. So if I was a E4, my mentality should be of being an E6. So they always said, be 2 ranks ahead, do the things that you need to be successful, learn the things that you need to be successful, 2 ranks ahead, and you'll always be ready. So is that kind of like that? I mean, how do you look 10 years and 20 years into the future? Or is this just your proprietary type of training that you give your clients?
Well, no, it's available for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that we're looking 10 years in the future.
Yeah.
It's we're acting 10 years in the future.
Okay.
We've become 10 years in the future.
Okay. I like that.
So it's kind of like those genii that you see that are those really smart phenomenal kids that you see that are 12 and 14-year-old at Harvard.
Yeah.
They are not necessarily looking 10 years in the future, but they're operating as someone who is 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, because they have developed the mindset that is allowing them to receive the information at that particular university and process it as a 12, 13, or 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So this is no different. What we're doing is we're reprogramming using the frameworks and using my techniques that would allow you to operate 10 years from where you are right now. This is going to... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You might say it right now. This is going to...
Well, let me hear what you're going to say. Let's see it. Yeah.
How do you know where you should be operating 10 years from now to be able to focus on it now?
So that's the work that we do. And the work that we do is this. And actually, this is a proprietary method, but it's not. I'm not the only person who's ever said this. I'm not the only person that's going to teach this. I might have named it the C3 method, which is my method of going about it, and I'm going to teach it to you right now. So the C3 method is clarity, confidence, consistency. If you have 100% clarity and 100% confidence, and you consistently have that 100% of the time, you can consciously create anything that you want.
Yeah.
So let's talk about clarity. What is the first way, or what is the way that you move into clarity? Well, you first need to have awareness. You need to have awareness of where you are.
Yeah.
So you have the awareness, and that awareness, in between that awareness and the clarity, you have to do a lot of deep programming. What is deep programming? It's the analogy that I can give is, if you're looking out a window and it has mud on it, you can't see outside the window. But when you deprogram and you wash just a little bit away, then you can see, oh yeah, it's sunny outside. If you wash more, you can see, hey, there's people. If you wash more, you can see the whole entire picture. That's deprogramming. That's going to give you clarity. So we all have that image, right? Now we're going to move from clarity to confidence. But what's going to get you from clarity to confidence? Disruption. You're like, what?
In your normal. Go ahead.
Like, why do I want disruption? I don't like that formula. I don't like your framework, Michael. I don't want to go through the disruption.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how else do you think that you're going to become confident? You need to have contrasting experiences. You need to, once you have the clarity on this is exactly what I want to do, you're going to be tested on that to really drive home. This is what I want to do. So if you're like, hey, listen, I want to move from 6 figures to $1 million or from $1 million to $1 billion, you'll probably get tested financially. Some things will happen where you really need to step up your game when it comes to your financial acumen and your financial mastery and all these different things. If you want a relationship, you're like, hey, I'm ready for the love of my life. You're probably going to get tested with some bad relationships so that you can have the contrast and experience. This is what I exactly want. I don't want those other relationships. Yeah. And then when you finally step into the place where you're like, nope, I don't want you because I've already seen you. I don't want you back. I don't want to go through that again. Then that's going to make you more confident. So you have to go through that disruption. Now we're at confidence. What do you think that's going to get you from confidence to consistency? Well, there's going to have to be some type of momentum. There's going to have to be some type of, some type of momentum that's going to get you there. That's when we talk about the whole reprogramming process. This is the Frankensteining. So I'm looking at all the best parts of you that we deprogrammed and that we got rid of, or I should say the worst parts. And then I'm looking at the best parts that we kept. And then I'm going to reinstall those as your new Frankenstein, your new doll, your new Lego, your new, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to put you back together, but only the best parts of you. That's going to give you the momentum to then consistently do all these things. And once you're consistently doing it, once you're doing it every single day, once you're doing it every single hour, every single minute, that's when you're creating the reality that you want.
I love it. Hey, so you mentioned earlier, you opened up a little bit about anxiety and depression and how they impact the mindset. What advice do you have for overcoming these challenges?
And that could be a sensitive subject for a lot of people, but since I've gone through it, I could speak to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. Most people, and I always am careful about saying all people, but I'll say the majority of people suffer from depression because they feel like they don't have another choice. They feel like they don't have a choice on how they want to feel. They feel like they don't have a choice on the reality and the cards that were dealt to them. They don't feel like they have a choice in some of the consequences or some of the contrasting experiences that are showing up in their life. And when you feel like you don't have control, like a choice, then you lost control. And when you lose control, a lot of times you just kind of give up and say, I'm surrendering to something. You're either surrendering to God, you're surrendering to the universe, you're surrendering to the situation, or you're surrendering to depression. So all these things that I just mentioned, it all comes back to a choice. If people really understood that we always have a choice of how we want to feel, if people always understood that regardless of the physical condition, you always have a choice on the outcome. If they understood that whole BTFA, that, hey, here's the experience, but here's the beliefs that you can have that are going to generate the thoughts that are going to produce a feeling in your body that is going to motivate you to take some type of action that is going to create a result. If they knew that process, then you could easily overcome any ailment, especially anything that was emotive, such as depression, anxiety, or anything, any other type of afflictions like that.
Yeah. I believe, and I'll ask you this question too, what role does community and coaching play in sustaining success oriented mindset? And I'll just, for me, having the right people in your corner, right? The people that's going to tell you the truth, the people who have your best interests at heart is absolutely essential. And I have people who come to me at times and they ask different advice. And I don't usually like to give advice. They really just want to give me the situation that they're in. And what I do is I try to provide clarity. And I tell them that I have clarity because I'm not in your situation right now. So when I'm in a challenging situation, I'm I'm going to look to you to give me the clarity. Because when you're going through it and you said it's a sensitive thing, it's not easy. You're not thinking about, all right, well, let me do this 1, 2, 3 step and I'll be good. Right? You're freaking going through it and you need a lifeline. So for me, I just believe community, having that circle of people that you absolutely trust, who know you have their best interest at heart, is important. And I think coaching as well, especially from wealth mindset, are essential to keep you on track. So what do you think? Or what are your words?
So in my words, so you mentioned two different things, and then, I think it's all part of the same thing. Coaching and mentoring is your community. And I think a lot of people who haven't invested in coaching think that it's nice to have rather than a priority. And what's interesting is the people who are very, very successful know that it's a priority rather than a nice to have.
Yeah.
So often I say to, some of my clients and the people when I'm giving, talks and stuff like, everybody who showed up today, the people who need it the most don't show up to these things, but the people who don't need it the most, they always show up. And that sometimes hurts me, when I think about it, because I'm like, there's just so much out there. And I know that a lot of people who don't think that they need it actually need it. So let's go back to, specifically your question when it comes to coaching, why I feel like it's a priority rather than a nice to have, why I feel like it's absolutely essential. Well, first, let's look at the optics. There is no one that has been extremely successful, no one who's made an impact in this world that hasn't had a coach or a community of mentors and coaches that are helping them.
Yeah.
If you want to get religious, let's talk about Jesus. Jesus had disciples. If you want to talk about, powerful figures, let's talk about Gandhi. Gandhi had a whole community that was supporting him and keeping him accountable and helping him to make decisions. Even if you talk about the president has his own cabinet. Yeah. So we're talking about powerful people in this world, and every single one of them had a cohort of mentors and coaches that were helping them get to the next level. This is the difference between being talented and being a legend. I can have all the talent in the world and I could win a game, but in order for me to win the championship, I need my team. Yeah. So was that a priority, or was it a nice to have a team? It was absolutely essential to have the team, to have the mentor, to have the coach. Another thing that people don't talk about is when you get to a certain level of success, and when you're looking to be at a certain level of success, your time is the most valuable thing that you can offer to people.
Yeah.
And trying to do it all yourself, trying to clean the bathroom, wash the dishes, cook for yourself, go to the grocery store, doing all those things, be the admin, be the marketer, be the sales representative in your team, be the person who's doing the operations, because you can do it all yourself. I can handle all this myself. It's a nice to have other people, to hire an admin, to hire a marketing strategist, to hire a cook, to hire a maid. That's a nice to have, but it's not a priority. If you still have that mindset, then if you want to fight for your limitations, you can keep them. And that's going to keep you continuously bogged down with a lot of unnecessary work, with a lot of unnecessary time commitments that is going to hinder your progress from getting from point A to point B. But let's say that you had a mentor or a coach. Now what are you doing? You're buying back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. What do you think that you're doing when you're reading a book? You're downloading time. The time that it would take you to figure out that same thing is the same thing that you're doing when you're reading a book for the next 2 weeks. And you're like, boom, now I have 2 years worth of time that I just downloaded inside of me. What do you think when you're doing when you're investing in a coach? You're like, oh, it's too expensive. Well, is it too expensive, or is it very valuable? See, when people get successful, they start buying based on value rather than expense.
Right.
So if I'm like, oh, this coach is a couple $1,000s, that's going to put me out. I can't really do it.
Yeah.
When I'm contrasting that versus if I don't get this coach, then I'm going to have to figure this out myself over the next 5 years. But if I invest the time in this coach right now, he or she is going to teach me what I need to know in the next 5 months. So I have the next 4.5 years to excel now rather than trying to figure it out over 5 years. Then does it become a priority, or is it just something that's a nice to have?
Right.
That's the purpose and the reason why it's absolutely essential for all your viewers, for everybody, to invest in a coach or a mentor, to buy back your time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember this story. You said invest, and this is actual investment in the stock market. And I remember I was in the Army. I was stationed in Hawaii, and there was this staff sergeant, E6, and he was telling me, hey, if you take $100 each month, blah, 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 right, then this. And my mind was like, $100 is too much. I didn't want to invest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was the mentality. That was the mindset. Like, well, what if I lose this money? What if? And I never moved to action. And then years later, I started learning about investing. So I've had a different mindset to your
And years later,
6-year-old and, your later self. Go ahead.
and years later, what he asked you to invest in is probably would have made you rich by now.
Exactly.
So the time that you're taking to try to get to that place is the time that you could have invested there that would have already made you arrive at that place now.
And I'll tell you one other quote that I absolutely love. When was the best time to get started?
Yesterday.
10 years ago. Or 10 years.
10 years
10 years ago. To your 10-year point, right? And when is the next best time to get started? Right now. Right.
I know that
So
quote,
So if the listeners could implement one change right now, today, to improve their mindset, what would you suggest?
I guess it goes back to what you were saying. Act.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Awesome.
Act.
Yeah.
You can read all the books in the world. You can listen to all the podcasts in the world, and they could give you fleeting. I guess it would be like this type of fleeting motivation.
Right.
But until you actually do something, until you finally act, you will never be any further than when you started.
Yeah. I love that. I go to conferences every now and again for different purposes, right? And when you come back from those conferences, or actually when you're there, you're so motivated. You get all this information and these amazing people and strategies that you just haven't thought about, right? And you're like, and then you leave and you don't act, and you lose all of that time saved, all of that information, all of the experience that they're giving you the answers to the test. You just got to sit down and take the test. The test is the act, right? And I freaking love that.
And you know the reason why you lose that motivation after about 3-6 months, or even 3 or 6 days or weeks, because you can't replicate that environment. You can't bring that environment to your house. You can try to emulate it. You can try to replicate it, but the sustainability of actually doing that over a long period of time is nil. So the only thing that you can do is act. The only thing that you can do is to put yourself in a different position than where you left, because that is going to continue to cultivate that environment. The only thing you can do is invest in a mentor or a coach that is going to help you stay mentally in that same environment that you just left. That's why it's absolutely essential for you to have a mentor or coach that is going to keep you mentally in the environment that is going to allow your plant to grow. Because if you think about a plant, if you ever did anything in gardening or pottery, you will know that you put a plant in a small pot, that's how big it's going to grow. But if you put your plant in a bigger pot or in a garden, it will grow as big as your limitations are with that plant. It will just grow infinitely. So what environment are you putting yourself in to plant your mentality?
I got it. All right. Thank you. Hey, but look, so I've asked you a few questions, and thank you so much for the analogies, for your personal experiences. But is there something that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with the listeners and with me right now?
Sure. Yeah, I can ask some questions. So based on this conversation, what are you going to do today to show your users and to show your community that you were going to act and that you were going to be in a different place than you were before, prior to coming on this podcast?
Yeah. What am I going to do personally?
Yeah, because
Man,
you being a leader,
Yeah.
you being
Yeah.
something that all these people follow, you're giving them permission to be like, hey, you know what? I took the advice
Yeah.
that I'm trying to give to you. I've actually done it, and this
Yeah.
works for you as well. That's why you can trust me on these podcasts and sharing them
Yeah.
with you.
I tell you what I will do is to strive to be more vocal, right?
Mhm.
I will continue to promote the messaging. This is something that I do all the time, and I talk about mindset. You know, a part of mine, from my experience, come from being in the military. And, you know, the outcomes were potentially a little more explosive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Right. But it all started with like our training. The military is really all about training your mindset. What is the word you use? Not reprogramming. Reprogramming your mindset. And I remember something like you go through adversity, you go through different things, and you respond how you feel comfortable responding to it, I guess. I remember something, and I was just telling somebody this yesterday. In the military, they used to reprogram you, you would get physically in trouble, right? So they make you do push-ups, they make you do sit-ups, some sort of run, some crazy exercise, and you feel horrible. But what was amazing is that at the end, this is what we had to say to them when they were done with, so they would call smoking us, right? When they were done punishing us, we'd have to get up, get at parade rest, and say, "Thank you, drill sergeant, for strengthening my mind and my body." And that started early. Like, that's in the beginning of like military training. That stuck with me because a lot of times you go through things and it really makes you better. It absolutely makes your mind stronger. I see things and I can put them in perspective. And I'll give you one last thing, because I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but I'll give you one last thing. When I left the military and I went to the office space, but someone said, "Lee, you go into these meetings and you're so calm. Why aren't you frustrated and angry?" And I told him I have a different perspective based off of the experiences I have. And I know that getting frustrated and yelling aren't always good motivators to get people to hear what you're trying to convey to them. A lot of times it has the adverse effect. And I try to stay in the moment. I try to figure out how can I best, and this is that looking into yourself. If they're not getting it, then it's on me as the leader. How do I make them get it? So I say all this to say that I will continue to strive to be a better leader. I will continue to read. I will continue to mentor and coach individuals either at work or through this podcast by having amazing guests like you to come on and tell different perspective, different insights of turning that clock back, getting some time back that you waste trying to figure all this stuff out on your own through experiences. And with that, that's what I'll try to do. Hopefully I answered the question. I got on my soapbox.
Yeah.
I'm had to cut some of that out.
Well, thank you for your soapbox, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But the thing I want to really emphasize, thank you, Drill Sergeant, for strengthening my mind and my body. You don't have to react negatively or defeat it when you go through things. Look at it as a learning opportunity, as an experience to grow. And then you can get more power out of that experience.
Yeah. I say to people like, man, you don't, I'm pretty sure that, people say this to your kids. Why are you so hard-headed? You don't have to go through this pain, this pain of having to learn this and having to learn that. I'm telling you, don't do that. It's going to hurt. But if you want to have that experience, if you want to feel that pain, by all means, it's free will, go through it. But I'm going to pay my way out of that. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I've had enough pain in my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to circumvent that. Can you just tell me where to go so I don't have to do that anymore? And they're like, absolutely. Just turn left. All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey,
yes, ma'am.
hey, Michael, I seen this one video and it's so awesome. It's a mom and she's holding this pot and she's handing it to her daughter and she says the pot is hot. And her daughter reaches underneath to grab it and receive it underneath the pot. And her mom's like, the pot is hot. And she reaches underneath. She's like, the pot is hot. Like, what the hell is wrong with you?
What are you doing?
So those are those lessons, man. And sometimes that's the job of a coach. That's absolutely the job of a mentor. So try to learn those lessons as quick.
It's our job, but it's the responsibility of yourself.
Oh, good.
So,
excellent point.
There you go.
All right, Michael. So where can the listeners connect with you and learn more about your work?
You can find me on any social platform at Michael A. Blunt, at Instagram, at YouTube, on my website as well. And what we do for people who follow me and what we do for people who reach out to me is I provide you with free content. I provide you with free masterclasses, a free community. And this is just to get you started and acclimated, because I believe in dating before you get married. I believe in get to know me a little bit more. So I want to invite you into my Q&A sessions, into my coaching, into my masterclasses. And once you feel comfortable with that, if you're like, hey, I'm ready to go to the mountaintop, then let's talk. And we could talk about next steps and see how I can personally help you and how you can join our official community, the Business Mindset Collective, that is really going to energize, hold you accountable, and really we're going to put the brakes on any of those limiting mindsets and really give you the training that you need to move into the next level of your business.
Awesome. Hey, Michael. Hey, by the way, before I get into the outro, Michael, I just want to say I love your website, by the way.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff in there, a lot of information. I love the dating before getting married analogy. Go in there and start dating Michael. He's got a lot of amazing.
I'm available. I'm available, community. Oh, my partner does. I'm available. For business.
She's saying he's available.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Actually, she's like, yes, please go date him because we need
there
it.
There you go. Hey, but Michael, thank you for sharing your journey and your transformative insights on wealth mindset reprogramming. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Today's conversation gives us powerful tools and strategies to help our listeners unlock their potential and achieve their dreams. And for those tuning in, don't forget to subscribe to Hindsight Podcast so you won't miss any upcoming episodes. And until next time, remember, hindsight is the key to moving forward. And always remember, #BeMorePeriod. See you soon. Hey, thanks for joining me here on Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. And while I have you here, why don't you take your mouse, go over and click on that subscribe button. No, not right there. Over to the right. Down, right there. Boom. Thank you. Now, thank you for subscribing to Hindsight the Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones.